like to call the May 2nd, 2023 Community Development Committee meeting to order. And Miss Erica, and I need to say it right, Madam Clerk, if you would note that myself and Mr. Duval are here. Mr. Brennan is on a important Zoom and should be here in about 10 to 15 minutes, but he asked us to go ahead without him, okay? And for the folks that are here, because we're gonna switch the program, the agenda. Here, so we're actually, Miss Jacqueline, if you don't mind, we're gonna start off with, or did you wanna introduce her, Missy? We're gonna start off with, community garden program. And the reason that we're doing this, of course, we've been talking with More Justice, and this year the focus, or one of the focuses, is food insecurity. And one of the things that they had questions about was community gardens. And I remember when we started community gardens. So I wanted you to give us all an update on where, exactly where we are, what we've done, because it's probably been 10 years now or so. And then I think they have either questions or statements that we'll address and have a discussion after that. Does that sound fair to y'all? Okay. All right.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And I am Jacqueline Williams, and I like that you put Master Gardener up there. And I am also the program coordinator in Parks and Recreation. I taught school for 21 years in Virginia, second grade, so that's prepared me for everything else in life. And I have been gardening really for about 34 years. So that means I started around 2. And so that also makes you a master gardener when you've been gardening for 34 years. And that doesn't mean that I know everything, but it does mean that I know how to grow my own fruits and vegetables. And that's what's most important.
And I just want to know, so seriously, Jacqueline started the community gardens when we were trying to figure out what are community gardens and where are we going. So I think this is good too, to see the progression and that you're still with it.
Yeah.
And we have the same person to help it grow. So I just want to give you your kudos.
Thank you. Because the program started in the community
The community development, yeah.
Yeah, department. And you felt
And
like
Randy stole you from us.
well, I don't know how it happened, but we thought it was a better fit for Parks
Right.
Department.
That's right.
And so that actually going to the next, we're going to go over to the third slide. We'll skip. Yeah, we talked about that. And, we brought the program to City Council in 2011, and it became a citywide program. And I actually went to North Carolina and visited other cities just to see what they were doing and to get the designs of how they ran their gardens. And, the main part of this is just, and I'm not going to read everything on here. You can read it. We have a lot of health disparities in our state, but it's more so to get people to grow vegetables at home and just to show them how easy it is. And I tell people all the time, even what I'm wearing, this is kind of a costume, but this is what the 21st century gardener looks like. So yeah, this is it. I'm not a farmer. I will go outside. Tomorrow you may see me in work boots and jeans. You may see me in heels. And sometimes I'm in the garden in my dress and in my heels because, like I said, I'm not a farmer. I'm just going out to grow some vegetables. So you can do it in heels even, aerate the ground. So our next slide is I wanted to show you where some of the sites, and I have them down by area code, zip code. So they're all of our gardens are on city-owned or operated property. And so, in here, 29203, you can read down the list, and I have put on here how many plots are at each garden. So this is just this area. We have more coming. So at the Leroy Moss Multipurpose Center at Hyatt Park, we have the city's first pollinator garden there. Looking at some other specialty parks here. If you have any questions, Noma is our largest community garden. We had 50 plots there, but we needed to redo them since they were there since 2011. And if you know the lumber has gone up. So in 2011, when we made these, when we constructed the beds, they ran about $500 a bed. Right now, they're about 1,000. So, and I'll get into the size of that later on. So lumber prices are still high. So right now, we're keeping it at 30, but we do have plans to put the other 20 beds back, when the prices come down a little bit.
And if you could explain to folks how that works, how the plots work and how people.
I should have put that first, so I can, we go to the next, it's in here, right? Or I could follow, I'm gonna follow these, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, if it's in there, yes, absolutely.
It's in here.
Yeah.
So if we can go to just to
So
show.
those were not all the sites on your first slide.
That was just-
That's just
that
that
was
one
just two
area. I
on
have a
two.
couple,
Marvin
so I
Hill.
broke them down into areas so that you can see where the gardens are
Okay.
across the city. So we have the Drew Wellness Garden. That's a wonderful garden. The people who work out there, then they go out and walk the trail and they have some tomatoes. The Marvin Heller Community Garden. That's where the city has its first tunnel, high tunnel garden, and our first children's discovery garden. So that's a nice place to go. If you've not been there, there's seating there. I like to eat lunch there sometimes, and just to talk to all the neighbors there. It's a nice place. So the tunnel garden, the high tunnel, is actually there for you to be able to start your garden earlier and prolong the season. So you could start your tomatoes, say in February, because here in Columbia we can grow all year round. So all year round, that's a good thing.
Oh, so you have to explain it to me. You can grow earlier because.
Well, because it's enclosed, because you have
Okay.
your summer vegetables and you have your winter vegetables. So if you, in February, it's still too cold for the tomatoes.
Okay.
So if you start them inside and then you can bring them out around April or after the first frost. And at the end of that season, tomatoes, the first frost will kill them. So if you have them in the tunnel house, then you can have tomatoes much longer. So that's a benefit to the city to have that. And that was from a grant, and I actually helped build that tunnel house out there in 2017. And again, if you haven't been out there, there's a children's discovery garden out there. So there's a little trail, there are signs, ADA garden beds, and walkways. So yeah, if you haven't been out there. And then Pinehurst has a tropical garden. So that's some more sites. And then we have another page.
Tell me go back. I'm a master gardener almost, not. Tropical, I have to tell the truth. Tropical garden.
Well, Brenda, what's Brenda's last name? Yes, her husband worked with Benedict students, and they went out there and planted these tropical plants, and they keep it up. Every now and again, he goes out with a new group of students, and they plant again. And it's on the side of Pinehurst, not in the front, or the right side, yeah, by the road. Yeah, there's some signage out there.
I mean, we're just talking about these wonderful things going on. I gotta get out of my office.
Oh yeah, that would be good. We can ride around to all the garden sites. It's fun. You get to talk to a lot of nice people. And then we have let's see the next one. Let's see here. We have, oh gosh, if you've not been to the Orchard, that's a wonderful place. And you remember we won the Orchard back in 2011. And it was an Edie's contest, and we had to vote. I was running around, vote, vote, vote. So we won that. And the Rosewood community now takes care of that orchard. And it is wonderful. And so they use a lot of permaculture there. So no cutting grass.
They use a lot of.
Permaculture is a technique. The forest grows itself. We're not out there fertilizing and cutting and trimming, and we're not, cutting the grass. The leaves suppress the weeds, that sort of thing. So everything is natural. They don't want you to cut anything, so they get wood chips for their walkway. Okay. They just let all the bugs and stuff do what they do. That's a simple way of saying it.
I like it.
Yeah, and not everybody has that view with the permaculture. That's like the messy yard, and people like my husband, he wants everything manicured and no leaves, and then the bugs don't have a place to live, and that's upsetting to some people. Well, a lot of it should be, as it should be. So, leave a little bit of leaves and some twigs for the bugs.
For the bugs.
Yeah, for the bugs. They need a home. Let me see what else is on here. In the Discovery, the South Edisto Discovery Park, I do a lot of my workshops there. So I really would like, this is a nice time to talk about this. It is a wonderful park. It's underutilized. And I would like to have like the city's first children's garden there. And that would mean that people from all over the state, the United States, you got to think big, will come to that park. It's the perfect place for it. So I do work with a lot of partners, and a lot of my workshops are at that park.
And tell me again, there are no children's gardens in Columbia?
Well, there was one at Clemson Extension. I think they closed theirs down. But not that I know of, unless anyone else knows. I don't think there are any. So that would mean maybe a mini, an orchard or sensory garden, a place for the children to grow their fruits and vegetables, and just some signage. And I don't know, if you Google them, they're all over. So I have a lot of ideas.
Jackie, do you have a list of all of your workshops?
Yes, I have. Yes, I do. Okay, well, let me move on along. So we have our last stage of we have a Peace Garden and Pacific Park. So again, you can have a copy of this as well, but it tells you how many plots are at each site.
Now, Jacqueline, this is because a peace garden?
Yes, Dr. Miller has a Peace Garden, and she just dedicates the garden to some of the youth that have been killed or by guns. Yes.
That's the one over by Sims.
That's down by.
Pacific Park. Mhm.
Spring Street.
So, so the lease program, we do have 3 sites that people can lease a garden bed. And it is at Noma, Granby Park, and the Hyatt Park Garden. I'll tell you, when you see everything that they get, so the lease runs from April the 1st through March 31st, and there are a set of guidelines that the gardeners have to abide by, and those were also approved by our legal department back in 2011. And every year I will update those as needed. And there's an application, and they have to apply every year. They have, like I said, they have to stay in compliance. So I'm out there all the time, and that means that they have to grow all year round. Some people, they have to grow all year round. So the gardens have to be, there needs to be something in there. Plan ahead.
Is the Noma one on River Drive?
Yes, it is.
That's the one I see is most productive. I was amazed to see all you had listed there. But as far as producing food, the one on River Drive is certainly a showplace.
I go by there all the time for lunch.
Yeah.
No, literally, I'll go by, like right now, the snow peas are there.
Yeah.
So yeah, the radishes, so I'll go when I'm out there. Out of Noma, the Noma Community Garden on River Drive.
Is there anybody to?
Well, this plot is, it's a community plot that I put in there, so I do my workshops there.
Okay.
And I allow yes, you cannot go picking at other people's. That's a good question. So yeah, I am allowed to eat out of
That's a special thing that you're able to do.
Yes.
Over the program, okay.
So if I do eat something, hey, I got some snow peas out of your garden. So, and I do actually have a garden plot there myself that I garden just because I want to see how realistic my rules are. Because it keeps me humble. So after I go and get my bed together, then I'll call people and say, what's up? What's up with your bed? But yeah, so it's that's a good thing to do. Let me go back to, yes. So what you get for that? As a 4 by 20 raised bed, the city's compost is wonderful. I know some people say I love it. If you put it in your garden, you'll have a successful garden. We give water hoses, water, free gardening workshops, master gardener advice. We have tools, and it's all for $20 a year. So that may be something too that we can address, because if you look and research, beds way smaller than that go for hundreds of dollars for 6 months. So there's a good thing going on in Columbia. Again, they have to apply every year and stay compliant with the rules and regulations.
How many beds do you have total, do you think?
Well, I would have to go back and count these plots. So I say, well, there's like 8 at Granby, 30 at Noma. We have 15 sites at our recreation centers that have garden beds, and some of them have 2. So I'll count up the math. And then if we put those 20 back, that's 20 more. So we're down 20 right now. And then we have a waiting list, and it's kind of long. And so the good thing is when someone leaves or someone moves away, or they decided for some reason they cannot no longer garden, maybe a job change, they've had a child or something, I go to the waiting list and they can plant anytime and just jump right in. So there's a waiting list for that.
So the waiting list, can you give, when you say it's pretty long, are we talking about 10 or 20 people, or are we talking
that's
about?
about right. So yes. And it grew a lot, with the pandemic, gardening just kind of grew, it blossomed. So everybody wants to garden until they get to that summer heat, and then they don't want to garden anymore. But but I should, the point is to show them how easy it is to grow their food. So our educational gardens, and that's that teaching. That's where that teaching comes in. I love that the kids love to garden, and it's sometimes the adults who don't want to go outside in that heat. But the kids, once they get started and once they eat something that they have grown, and they take that idea home, it's a wonderful thing to see. And then they're more apt to eat what they grow. If they've grown a turnip, they want to eat it. And that's with adults too. And you would be amazed how many children and adults have never even dug a hole in the ground and planted anything. So just to see their faces when they garden is pretty amazing. But they take the food and they cook the food and they eat it, and and that encourages healthier eating habits as well, and just a different lifestyle. So I love this. So this summer I'll be doing. I visit them often. So, and that. Okay, we'll get to the resources and the partners here, because the workshops are in here as well. So I utilize our city's departments, solid waste, the compost, the water, legal. When I have a document, forestry and beautification, I'm always there getting advice from them. Like I said, our city compost, and here are a couple of my partners that I work with. Wonderful, wonderful. University of South Carolina, we have the GLEE program. This is its 10th year, and we take students from one of the parks, and we go there for about a week. It used to be 2 weeks, and it's nice because sometimes it's the first time they've ever stepped on a community campus, and the first couple of days with the heat, because it's in June, they're crying, they want to go home. But I'll tell you what, by the end of the week, they don't want to leave. They don't, and just to see where they can follow, that seed to the plate, they can see that. And we talk about labels, the food that they eat, how to check the labels. So important lifestyle skills during that week. And this is our 10th year working with USC for the GLEE program. And I work a lot with Clemson Extension. And in the past, we've given free workshops, citywide workshops. The Department of Agriculture, my best friend. Grants, got a contact. And so we work together a lot. And that's how a lot of the projects go on from the grants. And Columbia Green as well, can't forget them.
Now, Jacqueline, do you all have someone who helps you all with the grants, or are there grants that you can actually fill out yourself?
I do the grants.
Okay. And you bring in the money.
Yeah, sometimes, you have that budget isn't enough. And then, what, I'll tell you what, there are a lot of organizations out that want to help the children garden and adults, and they get the grants, and then they come and bring their resources, and that's very helpful. And a good example is the bucket gardening. This is, I work with outside of Eden, and that happened last week on Earth Day. It was wonderful. The kids got 5-gallon buckets with soil, 4 plants. They got a hardcover book. They had lunch. They made a name tag out of wood for their garden. They decorated some rocks so they could label the plants in there. What else did they do? It was, I don't have any pictures of that, but it was, and then they got to take their buckets. They got to take them home. So, and that encouraged, because that's the point. A lot of people have they garden at Noma, our community gardens, because they may have not have enough sun. You need about 6 hours or more, or they don't have the space. So, you know, I tell them they can grow you can grow in anything. You can grow in anything. If it's a container and it drains, you can grow in that. And so we do drill holes in the buckets. So that's a nice program. So here are a couple of other workshops that are coming up. We're at Saludo River Walk. We're going to have mushrooms and pollinators. I'm working with our rangers, and we're going to be growing mushrooms. That's the one thing that I don't grow at home. So that's going to be interesting. And I'm going to be working with outside of Eden, and we're going to go to all of our recreation centers this during June and July on Tuesday or Thursday. And we're going to work with them in the garden because it would be nice to have some garden clubs at all, some official garden clubs. So that's another one. So let's see what else we have. Okay, and then on every Wednesday, I'm going to work with the same organization, and we're going to hold some gardening classes at South Edistal. So if they're homeschooling children and they want to come, we're going to put that out there for them to come. And we also will be serving children with disabilities. We want to make sure that everyone can garden. So let's see, we have a pollinator workshop at Southeast Park. I don't know if you know that we have a ranger out there, Alfred, and he is like a bee expert. So he's going to demonstrate, and that's going to be for everyone. So we're going to also plant some pollinator plants out there on that day.
You said that all of our parks have, a garden spot on them?
Not all of them, but so let me clear, I will rotate to the ones with gardens, which is about 12 gardens. And I'm trying to find ways to get the other parks a garden, because like I said, the lumber is kind of expensive. So that's where we get creative with the buckets and the containers. And there are cheaper ways to build a bed. You don't have to spend $1,000. You can. Some people take what are those things called? The little the little crates.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They take them apart and they build a garden bed, so it can be free.
Pallets?
Yeah, they go take a pallet apart and build a garden.
So when they're at one of our parks, who takes care of it?
And I don't, get that is in here. The park staff and the children, and sometimes community people. Because
Those are identified as the educational gardens, where we work with the kids in the community and our staff with Jackie's guidance to encourage gardening in that community.
Yeah. I will train the staff there, and then they will take it on to the children. So we do have a workshop for adults on June the 3rd. Now that's going to be really nice. It's going to be, we have a chef. So we're going to cook, we're going to grow. That's going to be a nice workshop for adults. There's the Camp Glee. And then at Granby, we're going to be doing some work there with restoring the beds and planting at Granby. So let's see, is that all of them? That may be all of them for now. So if you are there any questions or comments that you have? See, we're really busy.
On
We're
the
busy.
education gardens and like the orchard, who can take that food?
Which gardens? The community gardens?
Yeah.
The people who grow the food. And some people, believe it or not, they may not eat the things that they grow. So they're growing, I guess, for sport, or they have to stay in compliance. So they will donate the food to local area shelters and such. Or they'll just put it out there and say, freeze, take that. But so if they grow it, it's theirs.
For the ones though that they haven't, like the plots I know when they rent them, that's who gets the food.
Right.
But do we have other plots with food growing on it, and do we make that available? Like the orchard at Owensfield.
That's a free orchard, and the community works that, and they encourage people to come. I've seen people come from out of the state to go to that orchard. I mean, the apples. I mean, it's a wonderful place. All kinds of fruits and vegetables grow in there, and that's free.
There's also these gardens at Granby.
Okay.
And that's nice too, because at Granby, it's like an intergenerational garden. So we have a USC professor working with the youth there, and their garden is beautiful. I would like to get their story out. It's a wonderful story. Any other questions? How many of you did you know we have these many gardens in the city?
I didn't know we had that
did
many.
not. Oh, look at the
Oh,
picture.
and this is just, you know what, I wish I could just show so many pictures. You should see the kids' faces when they garden. And over here we have do you see Marvin Heller over in the corner at the Tunnel House?
The ones that I'm most familiar with are Melrose, which is a very active
It
one.
is.
It has somebody, a civilian, that kind of makes that successful.
He's
And
wonderful.
River Drive is outstanding. I'm disappointed in Marvin Heller's because Marvin was a close friend of mine, and I want it to be more active. I mean, he worked hard to get that garden there and left us much too soon, and he would be
Right before it all
he would be
happened.
honored if the community would step up and start using that particular place, because the city's got a lot of investment in that one. And it's very public,
It
and
is.
thousands of people come by there every day, and we need to have it bustling with.
And see, and right now, guess who plants? Me. So, and I have been trying to encourage them to come out. And so what I try to explain to them, because I get all the phone calls for that. And I'm like, so I call the neighborhood and I say, you know what, no one's going to come in my neighborhood and plant mine. It's the gateway to their neighborhood. So I just hope every time I'm out there that when I'm out there planting, that they will see it and be encouraged and also come out and garden it. And it has worked.
That neighborhood association is getting revitalized.
Yeah.
And I've got a young fella that's interested in it, so maybe that'll.
Well, I let them know that as well because it is city-operated property, so we can't just let it look any kind of way. So
Yeah.
if there are any other organizations that are interested, I do let them know. And because it's not, anyone can garden there, but it's still good to work with the community just so they know who's coming in their community. So it's not like they would say no, but it would be good if it could be a partnership.
When the senior center, the senior residential from Columbia Housing is done, that might be a good partner to go. It's 2 blocks up the road, so that'd be some good energy there.
That would be.
Very good
Very good.
presentation.
Well, how many of you do you all garden? Come on out and garden with us. You gotta grow and wait.
I'm not gonna,
But my daughter is trying to help me.
A lot of the weeds are edible. Yeah, they are. That's gorgeous. Well, thank you very much.
we're gonna see some of the more justice folks. I'm only gonna share a couple of pictures with close friends of some gardening that I'm doing this morning that didn't go right. I still took a picture and sent it to someone and said, oops, something went wrong. More justice folks, do y'all have any questions? And as y'all can see, our staff folks are really like the people who know the nitty gritty, and all of us are actually kind of surprised at all that. I literally remember like the first time I heard community garden. So I'm really impressed with what Ms. Williams has been able to do over the years. Do y'all have any questions or suggestions, or did y'all want to present any information? And make sure you speak in the mic so it's recorded.
The Marvin Heller Community Garden was there before we started the program. That was there in 2009.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Robert. Thank you so much for letting us be here today. Really appreciate Ms. Williams, all that amazing work and good, just amazing, powerful things that are happening. So as you know, we're here with More Justice, which represents the 27 congregations who, in addition to doing so much stuff daily and weekly to feed people, are gathered together in this venue to try to affect positive change in our policies and procedures and programs to make the city a more just place for everyone. And as you already mentioned, one of our focus areas for this year has been food insecurity that came out of the house gatherings we had back in the fall with several hundred people, and we actually pray over, God, what would you have us address this year in our community? And so that's how that came about. As you probably remember from our previous communications with food insecurity, we're really working on 2 areas. One is the mobile market that's being proposed and how that could develop into a sustainable program, because our meetings and research with Baltimore, New York, other places have said that it really takes about 3 years for a mobile market program to be successful and sustainable. And so what might be the plans for that? And that's probably another topic, but particularly also it grew out of the Aspiration 4 from the Food Policy Council report about using publicly owned resources to make them available.
I'm sorry,
Oh, you-
Madam Clerk asked me if you stated your name.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
For the
Okay,
record.
I'm sorry, I'm Pastor Eric Fink from Living Springs Lutheran Church. Sorry about that.
No problem.
And to use publicly owned resources available for local food initiatives, one of which would be community gardens. And so we might have a few questions there. But I know in the Food Policy Committee report, they also talked about things like pop-up markets, produce stands, agricultural production, a whole list of opportunities that are there for use of local resources in addition to community gardens. So we have some questions about all of that, and if we can't, maybe you could even direct us to where we could find answers if we can't have them today, but it would
Well,
ask a
you
question
can
about
ask them
community
now.
gardens. Sure.
Yeah, you can ask
Sure.
them now. So I'll tell you what we decided to do, because as you see,
Yeah.
Jacqueline's presentation took 30
Yeah,
minutes.
right.
So we discussed, should we try and take on all the issues at one time?
gotcha.
And we didn't think we could, because we had some other stuff that we have to report on.
Sure.
So that's why today was like, okay, let's focus on community gardens, and I'm glad we did, because that was very thorough, Jacqueline. So any questions that y'all have, because now we have the person here for community gardens. So if y'all have any questions regarding that, this would be the perfect time. Or you can follow up with Ms. Jacqueline later, however y'all choose to do.
I think the one main question for community gardens would be that the community garden program serves so many purposes, like the educational, promoting youth, all of which, the peace garden, just beautification, many wonderful initiatives that excite us as well. But how could we get the data that actually connected the dots for us about who's getting the food, how many people who are food insecure are actually able to receive food and taking advantage of the program for that particular purpose. And I don't know whether you have access to that data or could forward that to us somehow.
Could be a phase 2, because right now,
Right.
all of our gardens are on city-owned and operated land.
Right.
And the people who grow in those plots, they get the food. So you have to think about the interest in who would care for this area.
Right.
And maybe it's something that we can think about getting, providing water. Maybe we could be a resource, because a lot of times I provide resources and lead people in the right direction if they want to start a community garden. But the one thing that is a challenge is you have a group who wants to have a garden. Then, like I said, in June, nobody wants to garden anymore,
Right.
and then it's something that the city then has to take care of. So if you have a group that's interested in gardening, and that's year round, because although it's not like I said, this is the 21st century gardener, but there is some work that goes into it. I don't even have, maybe we can even leave some of the plots at Noma.
So that was what I was about to allude to too. We started doing community gardens before food insecurity.
Right, sure.
Those issues didn't, so that's why it's such a broad base that's been approached. So I don't know if you'll get that type of data, since that is not how we initially purposed it. So we would have to find a way to start collecting that kind of data. But it started as educational. We didn't start dealing with food insecurity till about, 2014, 2015. And that's a good point that you bring that out, that is not how it started. I know it is the solution to food insecurity now, but that's not how it started for us. So trying to collect that data, and if you could give us the specific, I tried to write down the data, but if you could let us know specifically what you want, then we can try and find a way to start collecting it. Does that make sense though? But we weren't collecting it for food. Oh, got it.
Yeah, I
Randy?
can speak to that. I think as we've identified.
Oh, sorry.
State your name.
It's Randy Davis. As we've identified the communities that are impacted by food insecurities, you have to start there and begin to develop community garden concept in those communities to ensure that that community is properly served with with the needs for healthy fruits and vegetables. I often tell Jacqueline, the focus is on gardening, nutrition, and fitness in all of our communities, but particularly when it comes to funding and grants opportunity, you will have a better chance of being awarded funding if you identify community gardens in some of those communities that are impacted by the food insecurities. And not to put the cart before the horse, but those are some things that we're beginning to look at within Parks and Recreation as we identify, as we know the communities that need that type of resource. And there are partners out there that's willing to do that.
I think the big thing too is going to be identifying the community and then the people who are willing to do the garden. Because what we have learned, what we have learned is just because you put healthy food in a neighborhood doesn't mean that people are going to eat it if it's not what they're normally used to eating. So, it's to me, it's a whole educational process, but we have learned people want to eat what they normally eat, and unless we're trying to take on nutrition as well, it's great to have all of the stuff in the garden, but they're not going to eat it.
And starting with the young people in particular, starting with the children in particular, and giving them something to take home to their families, to their parents, and showing them,
And to cook it, because they have to cook it.
Yeah, there are other options. So, I'll be willing to speak with you later and share with you some of our contacts whom we're talking with now with the opportunity to address that exact issue.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Randy, prior to COVID, I was working with our friend James Sanders at the Colony about putting a garden underneath the power lines there, and I think Dana had gotten permission from Dominion to plow up a gardening spot there. Is anything been done on that?
Not specifically with James Sanders, but I have some other
It
partners.
was an area near the ballpark over there.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll get back with you.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Dana is the one that
Dana Higgins.
arranged it with Dominion.
Dana
The only
Higgins.
thing they wanted was for us to dig it up.
Probably Dana T.
Oh,
Dana Higgins, yeah.
Oh, okay, Higgins.
Dana Higgins.
So it sounds like with this focus on food insecurity, it might be, the next step might be a meeting with Jacqueline, Randy, someone to kind of figure out how that piece is working out in the larger community garden program, which is serving many good purposes, but particularly targeting the food. For example, if a lease requires a plot to be gardened for a full year, the $20 may be manageable some way, but if people who, as you know, who are food insecure and already working 2 minimum wage jobs and still don't have enough food, they're even if they had the willingness to do a garden, those folks who are food insecure, that's not going to be a viable option for them to be maintaining a garden year round. So that would be trying to figure out who can benefit in regard to their food insecurity from the plots and the gardens and the locations. How is that actually working? Not to diminish all the other purposes, but actually to sort of drill down to this food insecurity piece of community gardens and how productive that is for use of our public lands.
Madam Chair. I think one of the solutions to marrying the two groups' goals together is for the churches. You got 27 churches involved.
Right.
You come up with the congregation that's willing to do the work, and you give the food to the people that need the food, and we will help you find a spot that you can garden in. But you got to get the worker bees that want to do the gardening to raise the food to give to the food insecure.
Sure.
And I think you're probably right. It's somebody that's food insecure is not going to have the time or the inclination to go out and work a garden. But you got good congregations that got probably places on their church property that they could raise a good bit of stuff to give to the for the food insecure. So the 27 congregations need to put some sweat equity into the project.
And already are, and would be this, because we're
Yeah.
doing countless hours of Meals on Wheels delivery, food pantries, and so those hours are there, so, and it may be other opportunities for sweat equity too.
Students, I work a lot with students, USC students, Benedict students. Lots of them need hours in their major, so, and some of them just call me and want to volunteer.
Yeah.
So, that's another.
Sure.
So the only thing, the only thing I was gonna say too is, in order to see where that progress is, it won't be next month or
Right.
that, especially if it's gonna cost money, because we're in the budget year, but you said wood is, I mean, like, if we're gonna take on that, the data has to be collected first. And I'm really keen on making sure we choose an area where the people are gonna want
To eat.
want to garden, because
Oh,
that's
want
the
to garden,
biggest disconnect. We assume that folks want the right tomatoes, and we assume that they want the peppers and the strawberries like I'm trying to make. But we have to face the reality that a lot of them don't want it. So we could put it out there, and the question becomes then, can a church help? Like, if we put it there and work with the kids, maybe just seeing it, in some level of exposure. But my biggest concern is finding the people in those particular neighborhoods who will actually do the gardening. Which
That might be
And
one.
our other set of questions, which may be for a subsequent committee meeting, but it kind of touched on Councilman Duvall. You said, if you find a place of property, we'll figure out how to use it. So that's our sort of other set of questions beyond the gardens, which is the focus for today. But the other suggestions that the Food Policy Committee had, like pop-up markets, other things that could happen, where can we find, is there some process to find a map of identifiable city properties? Where do we go to find that? How
Now,
is that accessible?
have y'all had these discussions with the Food Policy Council? Because that's who we depend on to help us. with a
Well,
lot of
we've
that
had, we've met with the Food Policy Council and had those discussions, but in terms of procedures, if there are places, how do we find out where where city-owned properties are? So we could be a vehicle in doing these matches, either with congregations or the Food Policy Committee or pop-up markets or whatever it may be. Zoning, what sort of steps need to happen through the zoning process?
So this is my
those
question
types
too.
of questions. Yeah.
And this would be my question. So my question would be, with regard to that, do we need to identify the people first or the places first? Because I think we need to identify the people first.
Well,
And I
That's
think
just my 2
well, I
cents.
think that's
It's
part
my
of
2
what we
cents.
learned from our meeting with the Food Policy Committee, or the locations and where the people are. And so it's
And
probably
they
not.
have a list of
And they have
those.
that. And so it's probably not an either or, but a both and. And we're kind of pushing simultaneously identifying where the people are located, which Food Policy Committee and their subcommittee actually did some research on right before
Right.
COVID in that report that
Right.
and then trying to expedite and match the resource location, like where the properties are, where are available, what's the actual process that you would go through, so that if a congregation wanted to do something, or if some other entity had a proposal, that we would know what properties are available, what kind of zoning things would have to be gone through, who acts on it, is it committee, is city council, just how do we find answers to those
And
types
let
of
me
questions,
add-
which is not gardening.
You have a
but
map of all, and this was some years ago, of all the city-owned and operated property, but you bring up a good point about the people.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm going back to, though, for the purpose of, because I think if it's for the congregations, I'm thinking that the congregations wouldn't necessarily be worried about city property, but they would be
No.
worried about, not worried about, but like how they can duplicate it on their grounds.
Both and. Yeah.
I think if you got together with Randy and Jacqueline, you could solve a lot of the problems, answer a lot of the questions that More Justice has. So, for instance, pop-up markets. You don't want to know where we own a lot. You want to know where we have the facilities to support a pop-up market, which would probably be in an existing park, where you would have a parking lot, you would have a bathroom and all the other things. And then you'd have to find the vendor that would wanna come
Sure,
in.
sure.
I know Trinity Cathedral, which is one of your 27
That's
churches,
another
we have
meeting,
a,
Howard. That's
Huh?
another, pop-ups is another meeting.
oh,
I'm just
Right,
like,
so, okay,
because we're gonna
okay,
have
we'll
the
do that.
person, yeah, we're gonna have someone here who
I
can
think
talk
they could
specifically
solve
about
all the
that.
problems if you got together with Jacqueline and Randy and look at the possibilities of solving some of those, answering some of those questions with those two knowledgeable people.
Okay, all right.
And I'm sure Randy would be
For,
glad
for
to.
the community garden focus for today, so could get together with Randy and Jacqueline, get some of those questions answered, particularly how it's addressing food insecurity, maybe initial steps to get some of that data together, but also glean from what your knowledge of what you know about identifying properties and how they
Yeah.
can be used.
And
then
as far as the mobile market, that's gonna be one of our
That's
next.
another,
That's
yeah.
another
Right,
meeting
so
as
those
well.
would be,
Yeah.
future meetings would be, say, pop-up markets and mobile markets.
Right, because you see how, in order to have a full discussion, like,
Right.
it takes, this much time. So I think breaking it out is better, then we can do the deep diving that we need to do on that particular topic. And make sure we have the right people here, because that's always a critical thing,
Sure.
because we are not the right people.
No.
I know we are not the right people, so we
Right.
always want to make sure we have the right staff folks who,
The right
touch-
people in the sense that
Yeah, who
you
can
can make
answer
things
it.
happen. So,
yeah.
very good. All right. And that procedure worked well as far as setting up today, if we could duplicate that for these other topical
Y'all want-
meetings.
I need to check, so I check with staff to see what they are ready to do.
For mobile market, the next meeting a month from now, we should be ready to talk about that.
Okay. Do you want to do pop-ups first, just to make sure? Because I just want to,
What do we exactly
Yeah,
mean by
yeah, explain
that?
what the
Yeah.
pop-up's gonna sell and how they function, because that's probably gonna determine some of our questions
Yeah,
too.
well, our research has shown that there's a whole variety of pop-up markets, but it's more like a pop-up. It could be fresh produce, it could be perishables, it could be actually meat, produce that are perishable but available. Could be pop-up markets where food's distributed from other resources, from restaurants, market, this pop-up type entity where it's come and brings healthy food available and using a locally, publicly owned property to generate that.
And on a schedule,
Well, I think most
doing it, or the
Yeah.
individual or
Yeah,
congregation.
yes,
All of the
yeah,
above.
could be any of those, right.
and so we are already doing that in different places, like
Right.
with the, not Thrive. Yeah, what's the young
It
lady's
was
name?
amazing. The
Mhm.
whole room. was
Thrive.
Tomatoes, onions, zucchini, squash,
Okay,
potatoes.
yeah.
And the bags, I mean, I was like, do we need to get these bags back because they were so durable? They were like, no, so it's once a month. And they get to fill that, they put the sign
Right.
on how many of these.
Christy,
purchases.
is her name Christy?
The line was out the door.
And where is it, Jackie?
That's a high.
Considered Hyde Park
Mhm.
building there, and they were there an hour before.
Mhm.
But it's also important, like Tina said, that Chair said, we gave recipe cards, because a lot of them don't know what to do with those vegetables, and you introduce them and they don't, it is about education and nutrition. They don't know what to do with it. And so lots of times they just want, they like free stuff.
And
Yeah, no, but the recipe cards are important that we heard,
She
yeah.
does that. And for a minute, I was cooking something, experimenting. And Mayor Rickerman had already mentioned, I don't have a list. So I think for that particular topic, we kind of need, like Jacqueline did for community gardens. First, let's see what all we are doing
Mhm,
and
sure.
how it's working. Because, and as you can see, like today, we were surprised at great job, of
That's right, yeah.
doing. And then, so it's educational for us. And then the biggest thing I probably caught was that we started doing it before food insecurity, so it wasn't geared towards
Sure.
food insecurity. So next month, pop up,
No, mobile.
mobile.
They can do pop-up with Randy.
And let us get 2 weeks from now to make sure we're
Okay,
ready for mobile.
that's
I
what
think we
we'll do.
will be, but.
So mobile market next month is what we're
We
thinking.
will so we have a process where Missy and I meet in 2 weeks from today to determine what we're gonna do.
Gotcha.
So let us have that meeting, because what I don't want to do is some kind of glitch happens with the process and then we have to
Sure.
change it up. So,
Okay. All right.
um,
We can wait here and then maybe pop-up markets down the road.
yes, or,
And can we have a one-pager from More Justice about y'all's vision of a pop-up?
Sure.
I think that would help us. Do you agree?
well, Rickon seems.
It sounds like we're doing some of it, yeah, and maybe we're not.
Yeah, and we're really driven a lot by the vision from the Food Policy Committee, so we can consolidate that in addition to the research that we've done and get to send that to.
Now, I will say the Food Policy Committee probably knows all of them and they have them on their map. Have
Right.
y'all looked at the map that has all of the
They
resources?
sent us a map, yes.
Yeah, I do believe that most of those things, and the only reason I'm saying that is because I'm not a tech person, so I haven't been able to figure out the map. But they have a map that they put together that has all the different resources. I'll check with Shauna to make sure, but I'm pretty sure you would be able to find those places too.
Right, and in addition to the map of the publicly owned, the city-owned properties, we could still work on that.
That's not on our list to do now.
Yes, that's what we would.
Right. Because we're working on something totally different with regard to city property, so
The
we don't want to
city-owned
give you
properties are
this.
gonna be parks. You don't need to know, it's not useful for you to know all the properties that the city owns.
Right, other than the fact in some of the meetings we had with other cities, they're not just using parks.
And
There are other types of properties that the cities or counties owned that were able to either leased, converted, whatever for those purposes. So we would need to.
We don't have that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that is a good question. The email that I got just said pop-up shops, and I had my vision, but a clear definition would be helpful
There's
to,
a whole variety of what that could be.
yeah, of what that could be.
Good.
Do you want to introduce everyone? I
Yes,
see some familiar faces.
Everybody introduce yourself.
Hello, Rowena Highland from Shannon Presbyterian. Has he been heard on staff? Cindy Gonzalez on staff.
My mother is a part of More Justice, Bernadette Herbert, and I get the 411 all the time. I do.
thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
One additional thing, would it be helpful?
The mic.
Sure. I can make that happen for you.
Just so everyone can hear.
Sydney Gonzalez. Would it be helpful for us to send some of the questions on what we're kind of, because we're not all knowing, we don't know everything. So part of our process is asking you guys what you know. So would that be helpful for us to kind of write those questions down so you know what we're looking for and send those to you?
I think it would be helpful.
So at least like for your planning and you're planning for like what to talk about in the future, you will know what we're looking for information wise.
Right.
With that's.
Meanwhile, y'all set up a meeting with Randy and Jacqueline.
Have y'all gotten the message
Yes.
from Councilman Duval? Did y'all get that message? I appreciate y'all being here, really, and I hope that this process is helpful to getting what y'all need to get.
Yeah, well, and helpful to getting our folks what
Yeah.
they need to get, because we're
And
really not
I have
concerned
to,
about
I'm
us. It's just getting.
ADD. I gotta like zone in on one thing really hard, and follow up. But I will make sure to check with the Food Policy Council to see about, because they may already have that information on the map. but
Right,
it's
and their
just-
meetings are on our calendar, so that we would
Yeah, I
meet
saw
regularly with
someone
them.
there at the last meeting. I don't go to the meetings. I went to one. I only went to one meeting. That's all I can say. I only gone to one.
Thank you, and we'll see.
Thank y'all. I'm happy I made it. Now, it is 11:54.
So Dolly has 6 minutes. That's
I was
what
gonna say,
deserve,
can
Dolly.
you do 6 minutes? Okay. So we're gonna go to Community Development Block Grant Program Update with Ms. Dolly Heron.
Thank you. Okay.
So, just wanted to give you an update on the events that happened during Community Development Week. As you have in front of you, all of the items, it's been a very successful month in the month of April. And of course, the kickoff and the cleanup happened very successful. And it is still going on through April. Well, it ended April 28th, and it's been very successful throughout the city. On the 4th, we presented National Community Development Week, financial literacy. It was very, the proclamations, and of course, you see on the 5th, we did this Community Development Day at in collaboration with the International University and Benedict, and that was very successful. On the 10th, we went through Community Development Week video was displayed on the city's website, and the highlights from the importance of community development. And the video was re-edited and put out for all to enjoy. We actually did Community Development Department, did Day of Service, which was wonderful, along with Richland County. We worked packing food boxes at the
Did you do
Harvest Hope.
Harvest
I'm
Hope?
sorry, Harvest Hope, along with Richland County. And then there was also Watch 57. Their Day of Service was there as well, which we got lots of coverage, free coverage on that item. And then there was on the 13th, Know Your Rights, Tenant Rights. So that was very well attended in conjunction with Richland County. So just various things. Now you've got all of this information there, so you can see all of the things that we have done up until Wednesday, the 26th, where we also collaborated with Richland County for a homeowner rights workshop. So it was very well attended. Moving on to timeliness. So Community Development Block Grant timeliness is a test that happens annually from HUD. They do a test that calculates how much money you are expending throughout your program year. That is a very intricate test. It's done every May 2nd, and today is May 2nd.
Oh, wow.
And so what they do, the test is done 60 days prior to the end of your grant period or your program year. They count up or they add all of your program income, your revolving loan fund, plus all of your entitlement. That's the formula. And they divide that by the amount that you have currently in your allocation. If it is more than 1.5, then you are out of compliance. If it's less, then you are timely. And I'm very happy to say that we are timely as of today, and we are timely, and we have met our timeliness test. So that is a
That
great
deserves a
accomplishment.
little bit more. I'm gonna give it all the credit
Yeah,
it
that is
deserves.
great.
Yes.
A lot of hard work and determination that went into that. And the last item I have is the 23 Annual Action Plan, which is a plan that is done annually in conjunction with our 5-year consolidated plan. And the sources of entitlement that we expect to receive for that program year for CDBG Home and our HOPWA programs. We have a total revenue for CDBG, which includes the allocation that we are projecting to receive, as well as our program income that we have on hand. And any prior year funding is about 2.3 million that we expect to be able to put into activities for CDBG for home. The total revenue we anticipate with the annual allocation and program income is about 1.4 million. And our HOPWA, Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, our annual allocation this year is 1.8 million. So that's a revenue, total revenue of about 5.6 million that we expect to have available for activities and to put into the community. For CDBG, I do want to just go back and just, the activities this year was a little bit different. We did focus on homeless recovery and those that are that have been homeless, the chronic homeless. And so we did partner with the homeless shelter, Ms. Kamisha Hemford, to help us with the process. And this year we were able to identify public service agencies that will also help support the Rapid Shelter. So it was a little bit different in our process this year, but it did work perfectly through the process. So we did get some agencies that would not have normally applied for this type of funding this year to help support the Rapid Shelter. And so this year for funding Mercy, which we currently fund, Fast Forward, we're funding also the Main Street District for their outreach ambassador, Midlands Housing Alliance transitions, and the Rainy Day Fund. So these are agencies, with the exception of two, that normally do not apply for a public service dollar. So this will help in sustaining and supporting the Rapid Shelter. And then, of course,
I do have a question. Is the intent to do it every year, or is this starting, trying to see how it works?
yes, this was, yes, to start, to see how it works, since of course the Rapid Shelter is new, and to be able to see if there are public service dollars that can support, to help support the cost of the Rapid Shelter. So that process did work very well this year. So, and of course, we are funding our HOPWA sponsors. We have the same sponsors every year. This year, of course, our sponsors are the Columbia Housing Authority, Midlands Housing Alliance, Palmetto, AIDS Life Support Services, or PALS, the Cooperative Ministry, Upper Savannah Care Services, University of South Carolina, Department of Medicine.
And Dolly, it's worth mentioning Hopper is a 6-county.
It is. It is a 6-county region. So what you see is the statistical area that has been designated by HUD to serve those 6 counties. So,
And some people don't know what HOPWA is.
so Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS is the acronym for HOPWA.
And so we got looks like a 10% increase. Is that because there is a larger need, or?
So they did a recalculation, a modification last year with HOPWA, with the formula, because they were only concentrating really on those that were initially diagnosed with AIDS or HIV, but because individuals are living longer, right? So they had to modify the formula. So that caused our allocation to increase because there are more people living with a disease over the years. So that is what caused the increase. And we will continue to get, I think, more money each year.
Wow.
Our next steps, as you can see, we do have a public comment period that began April 4th and it will end May 5th. And we also have a public hearing on May 4th. Our last and second public hearing for the community to have comments. And then we will submit this draft plan to HUD on May 12th. And then the program year begins July 1.
Are y'all getting hundreds of people coming to the public forums now?
No, we do them virtually, so we are getting more participation. We have been able to get more participation.
It's hard to get people
during
out.
them virtually.
All right, beautiful.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you. And we're gonna move my agenda item to next month because I think I'm in another meeting in a few minutes. Thank you all so, for joining us. If you have suggestions on how we can make it work, we're open to them. Thank y'all so much. Madam Clerk, do you need us to, make a motion to adjourn? Do we have consensus?
We have consent.
Yes, thank y'all. Thank you. And thank y'all so much too.